I know that love doesn't come from man, it only comes from God.
What if following God cost you everything? Fame, friends, and even millions of dollars. For these 9 celebrities, faith was not an easy path. It was a risky choice. They put at stake the very things the world values most: money, reputation, and even their own careers. The question is inevitable. Did they remain faithful and lose everything? Or did God lead them towards something even greater? The story begins with a man who did not hesitate to risk $30 million of his own money because he believed God was by his side. Before we begin, I want to thank everyone who supports the channel by leaving a like down below. Now let's get straight to the point. Mel Gibson. From Hollywood's favorite star to a complete outsider, perhaps no Christian in the entertainment industry has paid a higher price for his faith than Mel Gibson. He reached the top with productions such as The Patriot and Braveheart. The latter earned him Academy Awards for Best Director and Best Picture. But everything was turned upside down when he decided to begin his most personal project, The Passion of the Christ. I was born into a Catholic family and my beliefs are Christian. I fully believe in this, so portraying it was an honor. The industry's response was immediate and direct, total rejection. No major studio wanted to become involved. Gibson then took $30 million from his own pocket to make a film about the suffering of Jesus. Even before its release, the movie was already under attack. Critics accused it of being dangerous and anti-Semitic, despite its commitment to remaining faithful to the biblical accounts. The public, however, responded in a completely different way. The Passion of the Christ became a global phenomenon, earning more than $600 million worldwide. But instead of receiving recognition, the boycott only became worse. Personal scandals came to light, and Gibson was pushed to the margins of the industry. Although his failures were publicly exposed, many people within Hollywood have admitted that the real reason for his cancellation was his courage to place the sacrifice of Christ on movie screens with such intensity. Even after being sidelined for nearly a decade, Mel Gibson did not give up. He has gradually rebuilt his career, but he has never abandoned the faith for which he risked everything. His boldness in standing against an entire industry to portray the truth he believed in inspired thousands of Christians to remain firm, even when the price seemed far too high. Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey grew up far away from the spotlights and glamour of Hollywood. His childhood was marked by real hardship. His family lived in Newmarket, Ontario, in a working-class environment where every dollar mattered. When his father lost his job, the Carrey family had to live in a van parked beside a relative's home. While still a teenager, Jim was already carrying adult responsibilities. According to a relative, he seemed like a 30-year-old trapped inside a boy's body. He attended school during the day and cleaned buildings at night. At home, he did everything he could to keep the atmosphere light, making people laugh even when the tension was constant. Most of his energy was devoted to his mother, who spent her days sick in bed. I had a job, at least in my own mind, and that was to make my mother feel better. She was very sick. Instead of surrendering to his limitations, Jim decided to take a chance on his talent. His opportunity came through the television show In Living Color, where his exaggerated characters and extraordinary energy immediately attracted attention. Within a short time, he became an iconic television figure. Soon, Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber transformed him into a global phenomenon. To the public, he appeared to have achieved everything, but inside, the emptiness was profound. Jim once wrote himself a symbolic check for $10 million, dated 5 years into the future, as though he were sealing a commitment to his own success. He carried that piece of paper like a silent promise. 5 years later, he actually received that amount for Dumb and Dumber. The story became a classic symbol of what is often called the law of attraction. Jim did not merely believe in that idea. He lived as though it were everything. But when he reached the top, he encountered something unexpected: emptiness. In one interview, he spoke with startling honesty. "I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of, so they can see that it's not the answer." On the outside, there was success. On the inside, there was restlessness. Friends said he always seemed to be searching for something he could not define. Then in 2015, the hardest blow came. His former girlfriend, Catriona White, took her own life. The tragedy became news around the world. For Jim, it was not merely shocking. It was devastating. The pain intensified when her family blamed him for the tragedy. Even after he was legally cleared, the episode left him emotionally shattered and filled with profound questions. It was during that season that something began to change. Instead of giving in to bitterness or despair, Jim began drawing closer to Jesus. In the end, I believe suffering leads to salvation. We make one of two choices. Either we choose the path of resentment, which leads to revenge, which leads to self-destruction, which leads to hurting others, or we choose the path of forgiveness, which leads us to grace. That encounter completely reshaped his view of the world. He began painting images of Christ, using art to express what words could never fully capture. Today, Jim openly speaks about how his faith helped rebuild him from the inside. He suffered deeply. The pain completely broke him, leaving him overwhelmed by doubt and a profound sense of abandonment. I'm sure every one of you has felt that. At that moment, there was an important decision to make. That decision was to look at the people who were causing all that suffering with compassion and forgiveness. Jim Carrey is no longer just the comedian who made millions laugh. He is someone who faced heartbreaking loss, descended into his darkest moments, and found in faith a new reason to live. His story reminds us that even our deepest wounds can become the doorway to something greater. Jonathan Roumie. Jonathan Roumie was born in New York City. After his family moved to the suburbs of Long Island, he embraced the Catholic faith. He studied filmmaking at the prestigious School of Visual Arts, dreaming of a career in the entertainment industry. But his journey was anything but easy. In 2018, at the age of 44, Jonathan found himself facing one of the most difficult seasons of his life, a breaking point that would test both his faith and his determination. The opportunities had all but disappeared. In one interview, he spoke candidly. "I was broke. I had no money, no options. I couldn't see a way forward. About 6 years ago, I reached a point where I couldn't earn enough money to support myself, not only as an actor, but even while juggling 6 or 7 different jobs at the same time just to pay my rent and my bills. I reached a crisis point. I had no money. I had no food. I didn't even know how I was going to get something to eat the next day. The only thing I had left was to get on my knees, pray, and surrender my circumstances and my life to God. I said, Lord, if you want me to do something different, I'll do it, because I don't know what you want from me. But I trust you. I place everything in your hands. You take care of it all. I surrender." That very same day, he experienced what he describes as a financial miracle. It was something he could not explain, and it completely changed the way he viewed the world and the way he lived his life. 3 months later, the phone rang. On the other end of the line was director Dallas Jenkins. He had an unexpected offer. He wanted Jonathan to portray Jesus in a new television series that would present Christ in a more personal, human, and approachable way. And 3 months later, Dallas called me to play Jesus in The Chosen. At first, it seemed like just another small independent project, but that invitation became The Chosen. A series that exceeded every expectation, became a global phenomenon, and reached millions of people around the world. That moment became the turning point of my life. It changed everything. Jonathan openly identifies as a practicing Catholic. He regularly attends the Eucharist, receives the sacrament of reconciliation, and keeps his faith at the center of his life. His story reveals a simple but powerful truth. In life's darkest moments, when everything seems lost, God is still there, ready to act at exactly the right time. Chuck Norris. Carlos Ray Norris, better known as Chuck Norris, is an American martial artist, actor, film producer, and screenwriter. After serving in the United States Air Force, he began building a successful career through martial arts films. But success was not enough to heal a failing marriage. It could not overcome his struggle with alcohol, and it could not fill the emptiness that no career could ever satisfy. Chuck grew up in poverty in Oklahoma, raised by a single mother who prayed for him every night. She would often tell him, "God has a plan for you." For many years, Norris believed martial arts would give him all the strength he needed to face life's challenges. But he was wrong. Alcoholism had haunted his family for generations. It wasn't long before that same struggle reached him. "I was destroying myself with parties, trying to fill the emptiness inside me." Years later, he admitted how completely the Hollywood lifestyle had consumed him. 30 years of marriage fell apart because he had lost sight of what truly mattered. It was during that lowest point that something inside him was rekindled. He remembered his mother's prayers and began opening the Bible again. Unfortunately, in the entertainment industry, you often lose sight of what is truly important in your life. But God was not finished with him. When Norris married his second wife, Gina, the two of them began reading the Bible together every morning. Today, Norris openly speaks about how faith saved his life. I was always filled with anger. There was a huge hole in my heart. Nothing made me happy. Then I married a God-fearing woman, Jim Caviezel. Jim Caviezel was at the peak of his career. He was a familiar face in major Hollywood productions. Then one day, the phone rang. It was Mel Gibson with an offer that would change everything. I answered the phone and said, "Yes, I'm busy." He replied, "Jim, it's Mel." Then he asked, "Do you still want to play Jesus?" Mel Gibson did not soften the warning. He told Jim that accepting the role would be like signing the death warrant for his Hollywood career. "If you do this, you may never work in this town again." In that moment, Jim realized the weight of the decision before him. He could protect his image and play it safe, or he could become part of something far greater than himself. For a moment, I was afraid, but then an incredible peace came over me, a peace that came from heaven, and I said, "Look, we are all called to carry our cross. If you don't carry your cross, it will crush you." The entire world knows what happened next. The Passion of the Christ became a global phenomenon, but Mel Gibson had been right about the consequences. Despite the film's extraordinary success, Caviezel found himself pushed aside. From one of Hollywood's most sought-after stars, he became an outsider. Two of his agents left him. The studio stopped calling. Years later, he reflected on what happened. "Suddenly, I went from being one of the 5 most sought-after actors in Hollywood to almost nothing. I didn't do anything wrong. I simply played Christ." Most remarkable of all, Jim Caviezel has never regretted that decision, not even for a second. The spiritual impact of the film meant far more to him than anything he could have achieved as an actor. There is a price for our faith. There is a price for our freedom. During the filming of The Passion of the Christ, that price became painfully real. He was repeatedly struck during the scourging scenes. He endured the physical demands of the crucifixion. He was struck by lightning. Later, after months of hypothermia and intense physical strain, he underwent heart surgery. One day during filming, my arm became trapped beneath the heavy crossbeam. When someone pulled from the opposite direction, the muscles twisted and my shoulder was dislocated. I fell to the ground, hitting my head in the sand. That scene is actually in the movie. Near the end of the film, when Jesus' shoulder comes out of joint. Now I know exactly what that felt like. Caviezel has also spoken about the fear many actors have of publicly standing for their faith. He believes many of his colleagues hide their beliefs because they fear losing opportunities in Hollywood. Today, Jim is preparing to portray Jesus once again under Mel Gibson's direction. Hollywood may have closed its doors to him, but Jim Caviezel found something that no fame or contract could ever provide: the confidence that he is standing on the right side, and the assurance of God's love. Sylvester Stallone. Most people know Sylvester Stallone as the legendary Rocky Balboa, the boxer who gets knocked down, beaten, and battered, but always gets back up. The world cheered for him. It celebrated every punch he threw. But there is one detail that many people never notice. Every Rocky film begins with the same image. People don't realize it. The very first shot is an image of Christ above the beams of a church with the word resurrection. Then it cuts to Rocky getting beaten. That wasn't accidental. It was intentional. Stallone explains that the opening scene was a symbolic statement. Faith is not a decorative detail in the Rocky films. It is the foundation beneath Rocky, and even more importantly, beneath Stallone's own life. Raised in a Catholic family, Stallone admits that he drifted away from his faith when fame arrived. "I was a strict Catholic. Then I came to Hollywood, where every temptation imaginable was available. I started believing my own publicity. I admit, I lost my way." For years, he experienced every excess that stardom could offer. But when success no longer brought meaning, it was in those moments of brokenness that he found God again. "I finally decided to take things out of my own hands and place them into God's hands. I've always felt I was chosen to do something." That turning point began during the production of Rocky Balboa in 2006. It was then that Stallone publicly declared he had reconnected with his faith in Jesus and intentionally reflected that faith in the character of Rocky. Rocky isn't just a fighter. He's a man with heart, faith, and purpose. His greatest battle is spiritual. In an interview with CBN, Stallone spoke plainly. "I needed to return to church. I needed to return to my faith. Jesus is the one who gives me balance. Whenever I try to do everything on my own, everything falls apart. Now, At the age of 78, Stallone leaves no doubt about where he finds his strength. Jesus is the inspiration for anyone who wants to go the distance. Just as David faced Goliath, Rocky, the unlikely champion, didn't win only inside the boxing ring. His greatest battles were never fought in the spotlight. They were fought within, and his greatest victories came the moment he surrendered control to God. Brooke Shields. Like many actresses, Brooke Shields grew up under constant public attention and constant pressure. She was sexualized as a child, starring in films such as Pretty Baby and The Blue Lagoon. By her teenage years, she had become an international superstar. Yet behind the fame, she felt completely lost in an industry that never truly protected her. I was obviously their master plan. It's ridiculous. What really mattered was whatever would sell. She said those words with a mixture of irony and pain. As someone who realized, far too late, that she had never been protected, she had simply been exploited. For years, Brooke carried that emptiness. She endured painful relationships and suffered from postpartum depression after the birth of her daughter. It took years of therapy just to feel like she could breathe again. Jesus showed me that I could be loved without being perfect, without being beautiful, without being famous, without being thin, simply loved. The child star who had been exploited by the entertainment industry eventually found something that Hollywood could never offer: genuine love. Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington never intended to become an actor. His original plan was to become a pastor. In 1975, while studying journalism at Fordham University, Denzel found himself at one of the lowest points of his life. He had just failed a semester and sat alone on a campus bench, discouraged and uncertain about his future. Then a woman named Ruth Green approached him. She looked directly into his eyes and, as though she could see beyond that moment of failure, spoke words he would never forget. She said, "Young man, you are going to travel the world and speak to millions of people." I had failed in college. I was thinking about joining the military because I didn't know what to do with my life. Then she told me I would travel the world and speak to millions. Denzel initially believed those words meant he would become a preacher. After all, he had grown up in a Pentecostal home in Mount Vernon, where his mother took him to church 3 times every week. Attending seminary seemed like the obvious path, but acting came first. First the stage, then Hollywood, then the Academy Awards. For many years, Denzel kept his faith and his career in separate worlds. Everything changed after witnessing the devastation caused by Hurricane Katrina. That experience made him feel that God was calling him in a different direction. He began choosing roles that reflected biblical values, stories of redemption, devoted fathers, and men who stood for integrity no matter the cost. Today, Denzel preaches in churches, financially supports seminary students, and helps produce projects inspired by the Christian faith. In the end, he became exactly what Ruth Green had foretold: a man who speaks to millions, not from a traditional pulpit, but through the influence God has given him. Eventually, Denzel realized that true success is not measured by fame or wealth. It is measured by obedience. Tom Hanks. For many years, Tom Hanks' life appeared to follow a smooth and successful path. Throughout much of his career, however, he rarely spoke about religion. His childhood was marked by family instability and a patchwork of different religious influences. By the time fame arrived, Tom had drifted far away from organized religion. Everything began to change when he met his future wife, Rita Wilson, a committed Christian. Every day I prayed to God, every single day, for years. I prayed that He would bring me someone I could truly love, and someone who would love me the same way. And He brought me Tom. Suddenly, all of the spiritual experiences from Tom's past began to make sense. For years, I attended Wednesday night Bible studies with my church group. Today, Tom and Rita are actively involved in their church community. Tom says he has found peace not in having every answer, but in embracing the questions that have challenged humanity for centuries. Faith has to be nurtured by the person you see in the mirror every day. The man or woman you look at every morning is the one responsible for growing that faith. After more than 3 decades of marriage, Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson have become an example that when God is at the center, even the strongest winds of Hollywood lose their power. Today, more and more celebrities are breaking their silence. They are setting aside the fear of being canceled and speaking openly about their faith, not as something fashionable, not as something convenient, but as something real, something forged through pain, loss, personal crisis, and ultimately, surrender. They are discovering or rediscovering that true greatness is never measured by box office numbers or golden trophies displayed on a shelf. It comes from having the courage to admit our own weakness. It comes from the humility to kneel before God. It comes from realizing that no stage is greater than the calling God can place within a broken soul. Hollywood still tries to sell the illusion that everything is under human control. But some of its most recognizable names have already discovered a different truth. The only true control belongs to God. Now I'd like to ask you, which of these stories impacted you the most? If this video encouraged you, I highly recommend watching the next video appearing on your screen. In it, I reveal the other side of Christ's death, the part that movies and television rarely show. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.